thank you all for coming. The ones who know us and the ones who don't and the ones who open the Ekstasy email thinking, what the hell this is. A good brand is all about telling good stories, but a good story is all about tension. And tension is all about opposing ideas.
There's always this intersection, right, of consumers love storytelling, they love narrative, they love to be entertained, be informed. And I think if you talk about the tension on the other side of the fence, there's the marketplace. There's marketers that have, budgets that are looking to connect in with their brand messages and sell. And I think it's done best when people can storytell and persuade in artful ways that get across powerful, impactful brand messages in a way that consumers, enjoy and actually want to pull closer to them versus feel like they are being either intruded upon or bored to death.
And just to give you guys a bit of context, because I'm just conscious that we haven't done so yet, Screenvision Media is proportionally representative of 40% of the US box office.
That's right.
And in addition to that, just about 12% of the global box office by percentage. So just see that in that. So that's pretty much, and that's 12% of the world's box office, which is probably more like 18 to 19% of the relevant Western box office. Cinema is an amazing environment to tell stories in. Has been so for the last 120 years. And in fact, Edison-X comes from the idea of Thomas Edison and the creating of the movie theatres as we know them. That's where the brand is created from. So the rationale here is that when we went in those generational gaps at experience level, from putting sound around movies, putting colour into movies, where we are now is in a connected world, is that cinema is not connected as a complete experience. And the main device that could achieve that is a mobile phone, which obviously plays quite well with the concept of millennials, etc. So that's what we've specialised in doing, is index the entire movie. Every location, every product, whether it's official, non-official, etc., and the ability to, shop the movie to be part of that experience as you go.
The interesting thing about cinema is that, as you're saying, it's one of the oldest mediums, and it's probably one of the purest in terms of storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's probably the last bastion that's held out to technology in a way that is relevant to the change in the behaviour of the audience. The challenge we have is a people challenge, but the audience, as we're saying, the millennials and the Gen Zers, and when we talk about Gen Zers, these are not 2 screens at once, these are 5 screens at once, kids. These are easily agitated. They don't sit down for 2 hours without interacting. So the audience is pulling the theatres and the production that way.
When you see it like that, it's such a different experience to seeing it on your mobile phone. And so I think what we did and what we had to do and what's important is you make a film for what we needed to do that works at that size, and then it'll shrink down, and it can shrink down. What you can't do is scale it up if you've made it for a small screen. I think ThisGirlCan arose out of the fact that there's a sustained participation gap between men and women playing sport regularly or being active regularly, and we as an organisation, we're public sector, invest a lot of your money into all sorts of things to get people being active and playing sport. And we've done lots of things, practical things, to help women who said that they have childcare or didn't have time or didn't want to do traditional sport or didn't like exercising with men. So, would create women-only sessions, put crushes on. And there was a sustained gender gap of about 2 million still, no matter what we did, over about 5-6 years. And that's despite London 2012. One of the questions that I'm asked quite a bit about ThisGirlCan is how we develop the creative and where it came from. And it came from insight, data, research, intelligence. And we spent months and months and months going through the research and the data that we had, the research that was out there. We focus grouped, which when you're talking about creativity always feels like a dumbing down thing or a blanding out. And it wasn't. That allowed us to really hone our message and really understand exactly what it is that we had to be getting across and the emotions that we had to stir. One of the questions that we had to answer because we're a government organisation, we have to get permission to do this sort of activity, and we have to do paper after paper after paper to Department of Culture, Media and Sport. And one of the questions they kept asking us the second time round was, it's great and fantastic results, but can we just do it on digital? Do we need above the line? Do we need cinema? Do we need TV? We can do it much more cheaply on digital. And it's a really tempting, persuasive argument, because obviously it's a lot cheaper, it's much more, you can count it much more easily, you clicks per minute and cost per minute and everything else, but you don't get the impact without it.
I think what has always made marketing and communications a great industry is it's always been a tension between art and science.
Yeah.
And I think over time we've maybe over-relied on the metrics of science, and algorithms, right, don't impressions make, right?
Correct.
They can maybe on a data spreadsheet, but it doesn't mean this kind of impression.
Yeah.
If you're trying to build something, first of all, recognize if it's good for your customer in first position. And in the same way that, let's be clear, probably 50% of the movies that end up on cinema screens I don't believe should be there. I also think that 20% of the content on television, you know, Night Manager, House of Cards, belongs on the cinema screen.
Correct.
So first, I think, which you said, Mike, which is, who are you? What is the story you want to tell? Whether it's a NGO, whether it's not-for-profit, whether it's a charity, or whether it's a brand. If your story is good enough to live up there, with the level of impact, then just tell it here.
Verizon in the US have created an over-the-top product called Go 90, which is named after the fact that you turn your phone 90 degrees to watch video. It was a bit stupid, actually, because a lot of people on Snapchat only watch vertically. I think, of course, it has a place, because I saw a presentation from Snapchat yesterday. They've got over 150 million daily users. A lot of those are in the US. So if you are looking at it vertically and you're not building for vertical, you're not crafting for vertical, then you are losing out.
We, as an organisation, twice a year do a big survey of participation figures, which is how we knew there was this gap in the first place. And it's really extensive, covers the whole of England, and measures how active people have been in the last 4 weeks. So we had absolutely empirical, objective, robust data that's verified by the Office of National Statistics that showed that female participation had gone up during the right time frame to show that the campaign had had an impact, so we could prove that it worked. We then had to demonstrate that it was cheaper to do this campaign than to build more leisure centres, which it is actually. Leisure centres cost a lot of money. And anyway, you can build them and people don't necessarily go.